By this video, I will try to give some clarity, hopefully, to the question that is often asked by practitioners of Dhamma, or sometimes by people who don't associate themselves with Buddhism at all and who are suspicious about the question of reincarnation. I should say that mainly I really would like to be able to give some clarity to those who practice Dhamma, because having any doubt on the mind, having unclarity is quite heavy condition and it prevents us from continuation of the path. So we should try and be able to remove all uncertainties from the mind and practice with confidence. So why do we use the concept of reincarnation, rebirth, if already we say that there is no someone? We learn and we practice understanding of anatta, no self, and anicca, impermanence. So how can it be that we learn to understand that there is no someone real, there is no life, there is only the changing process, nothing is compact, nothing is solid, nothing is really existing? Then who will be getting this rebirth? Who will be reborn? Here I would say that we might use the concept of reincarnation for kind of early school, junior school explanation of karma. Since Buddhism teaches not only liberation from life, liberation from samsara, the cycle of reincarnations, but Buddhism teaches also how to improve the conditions of our life, how to decrease the suffering and to increase the light states of mind, the happiness. This is important to understand the law of karma, because everything functions just by the law of karma. And the law of karma is based on the cause and effect. Whatever cause we create, this type of effect will come. So there is no self for whom works the cause and effect. Exactly, cause and effect links perfectly well for removing the understanding of someone and something. There is no someone, there is only the cause and effect. Whatever is happening is the result of what has been produced before. What we see now is not me, is not mine. This is only the result, this is only the effect of what has been created before. The situation, the feeling, the thinking, the reaction is something drawn up through the potential which was already matured due to the law of karma. However, there are the conditions which are created by our actions, and the more we do the good deeds, the conditions will be more favorable. The less we do good deeds, the more we do ill will actions, the less favorable and more heavy will be the conditions for that very result of the karma which was produced before. But then who lives this, who suffers this, or who receives the benefits? No one, once again, no one. And with this no one, we will arrive at the understanding, hopefully, of who reincarnates. In Buddhist study and our own experience, our own practice, we know that there are 6 sense doors which come into contact with external objects. For each sense door, there is a correspondent object. For example, for the eyes, there is an object of form, shape. If we use an object of form, shape with our body, we just visually we can perceive the shape, but by our body we cannot perceive the shape. By our tongue gustative tastes, we cannot perceive the shape. By our ear, if we put the visual object of form and shape near to our ear, this will not create any correspondent contact. So it should be really correspondent. Visual door accepts the contact of form and shape. Once they get this contact, come into contact, there is a rising consciousness, visual consciousness, or gustative taste consciousness, or hearing consciousness, or touching consciousness, or mental consciousness. When there is a thought or some idea or memory, emotion, whatever arises mentally, it is perceived by the mental sense door. So the consciousness arises, and there is the process of recognition, automatic process of recognition and reaction of liking and disliking. And if we like it, we crave for it, we cling to it, we want more. And if we dislike, we also cling, but to the opposite idea, cling not to have it, cling to avoid this. But we also cling to the idea of this being something real, something significant, essential. We give the importance to that moment of arising as something real. And by giving this importance, we give a new potential of life to it. Once we get into interaction of liking and disliking, taking, wanting more, or rejecting, saying this is something which is not for me, which I don't want, then we recreate the potential for this experience to come again into our life. This is more or less an idea about how karma works, that we create the action and then there is a reaction, but it will be reproduced through different situations, in different conditions, in different span of time, within this life or within the life that we will still describe later as the next life, and the causes were created within this life earlier or much earlier in previous lives. And this is the chain of reactions which happens automatically. And only the birth in the human realm, in the human body, allows us to have these instruments of physical body and mental, conscious, developed highly enough so that we can develop the right understanding, we can process this, because again, we might attach to the words we, I practice, I do. The evolution is happening on its own. The Dhamma, the flow of Dhamma of arising and disappearing, does not need anyone or someone to do anything. It just happens, but we appropriate the experience. We appropriate by liking and disliking, by having attitude, by recognizing, by taking it as something. All experiences happening through all of the 6 sense doors, they, by our mind with defilements, by the ignorance and attachment, get combined together and get a compact form and shape and condition that we perceive and take as something or someone. All those that appear and disappear, one after another, we take as appearing and disappearing. We take as appearing, actually, not as disappearing. We take as appearing together and as constantly existing. We don't know even about the appearance. And this is how the practice takes us to understand gradually that everything appears, and then we need to learn that everything disappears. And this is the experience that we learn with the mind by constant practice of mindfulness with detachment, when our mind becomes sharper and sharper and can recognize the appearing and disappearing, and we can see how everything is constructed, and we can see how everything has the end. So, in fact, every moment there is life and birth. Every moment there is this coming to be from the senses with the correspondent consciousness that also has its end, that disappears. It has no power to stay, because there is nothing, so nothing can stay permanently. Everything just comes and goes. And those repetitive comings and goings actually form what we call as life, form that one who we call someone living life. So in the end of the day, by the end of this story, we can conclude that every moment actually happens birth and death and reincarnation into the new moment. But what we take as the reincarnation that we understand and we doubt about next future lives is in truth nothing different from what happens every single change. By the end of this life, imaginary life that we imagine with our mind, by wrongly grasping the appearing and not knowing the disappearing, we create the whole world. We create all the experiences of real feeling, of real being someone, of real experience in this situation, of that one talking to us like this or like that, or I should say this, do. All this we grasp and create as real. As long as there is the potential of karma, of causes that we created before, that bring results in connection, in regard to this body and mind, that interact, that come into union of all this creation together, Nama and Rupa. Nama is the mental part and Rupa is the matter, the material, let's say the body, roughly in this case, that mind and matter come together as long as there is the karmic potential for this particular matter and this particular mind to continue this flux, this flow together. Once there is no more karmic potential for this kind of birth, for this kind of combination, still there is karma to continue creating other combinations, then there is one last arising of the consciousness and ceasing, and the new consciousness arises again, but already in a different representation of different mind and matter, not different from the point of view of the continuation of processes, but different from the point of view how we perceived it from the wrong view. That is the new life starting in the womb of a mother, in a new reincarnation. A mother, if it is a human being or maybe an animal, or if we really live with the ill will, this can be the birth in some lower realms, or it can be due to our practice, the freedom from this body, and we can be born in some higher realms. But a new birth is happening just the same as all life is happening. Just termination of the previous arising and a new one coming. And that one will also be gone and new one will be arising. And nothing else happens in the whole life and in the whole samsara rather than these arising and disappearing. Generally, this should be helpful if one can listen without grasping of the concepts, attaching why we use the word like this or like that, why we say I practice, I feel, I sense, why there is this someone, since we learned there is no someone. We can get lost if we get attached. It is important to let go of everything when we listen to Dhamma and just be ready to get the right understanding. Without attachment, just with mindfulness. Same as we practice in all daily activities. I hope this is helpful and I'll be happy to answer the questions, of course, according to my own practice and experience.